Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Hey everybody, welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric Morgan over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa Williams over there.
Hey everybody.
I'm Kelly Young. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, but I wanted to start this off, you guys. You know that I listen to roughly 1 million podcasts.
That sounds about right.
And somebody told me that I had to start listening to the Joe Rogan Experience.
Okay.
Have you guys listened to this at all?
No.
I go back and forth with Joe.
Yeah, I was not sure why they thought I would like it, because what inevitably happens is they all smoke a blunt at some point and then the conversation gets crazy, but Joe starts answering everything with, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think people think they're a lot more entertaining than they are, especially while under the influence of various things.
Substances.
Yes. They're like, oh, dude, we got to record this podcast. I'm so crazy when I'm stoned.
With all that being said, though, I listened to the first episode and I was like, this is not for me. But then the second episode that I listened to had David Lee Roth on it. And I thought, let's see how this goes. 3.5 hours of Diamond Dave just being Diamond Dave. And Joe just kind of letting him go off. And he's talking about his new ink, his tattoo cream and all of this stuff. And talking a little bit about the Van Halen boys and all that. So that was fun. And here's a podcast that I didn't really care for, and now I've listened to, a dozen episodes.
Wow.
So one episode came up, and if you have been listening to this show, you'll know that Eric and I have a differing opinion on the director Kevin Smith.
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
And he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I kind of hate listened to it. And
I'm so mad.
And at one point, he starts talking about this dog that he had bought as a puppy, and then as it got older and it started, its organs were failing and all this, and he realized that it was, 15 years later, time to put his best friend down. And he went on this big, long story about how difficult it was to do this to something you love. And I was actually connecting with Kevin Smith, a person I hate. He started crying, of course, which I do not care for. But I started thinking, God, this guy actually is a human, and maybe you need to give him a little slack, Kelly. And then you know what I said to myself? I bet you Adolf fucking Hitler loved his dog.
Yeah, there's a fucking comparison. Jesus. What a stupid combination to come up with. Dude.
I'm just saying,
I don't like Kevin Smith as an artist. He's like Adolf fucking Hitler.
Every asshole who has a dog loves their dog.
Not even a worthy comparison.
I feel like I should step out of the room and let you guys hash this out.
Man.
My point being that Satan
could have gone with George Lucas or some other guy.
I love George Lucas.
But he's a psycho asshole.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it,
My
too.
point being, you can be the biggest asshole in the world and still love your dog. I don't have to connect with you on that. And so I stopped. I was able to unconnect with Kevin Smith again and realize it's just a big fat crybaby.
You just want to be a dick and you don't give a shit about it. It's like, fuck this. I'm never going to connect with. I can't change my mind about something. Well, on a nice note, I'm going to do a call out to Danny Williford.
Yeah.
Who sent me a really cool message on Facebook, which I kind of think is a lot of what we're sitting here doing this podcast for. So I'm going to read part of it. I hope you don't mind, Danny.
No.
If you do mind, call me up and I'll remove it from future reference. So your contribution to my education as a film fan and possible producer of film festivals has given me cause to reflect, commit to what I have on hand, and double down for next year to see what I can accomplish in exploring the terrain of horror film and genre in North Carolina.
Aww.
Fuck, man.
That's really awesome.
That is neat. And while we're talking about Danny, then we should plug that on October 3rd at the Raleigh Road Drive-In Theater is Thursday Night Frights, which is his little program of a celebration of short horror films that he's putting together. So this is obviously what he was talking about in that note he sent you.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Pretty awesome, yeah.
Dude, that is
cool.
freaking cool. Way to go.
Yeah, so we'll be talking more about that as details are finalized because a couple of our short films are probably showing in that.
That's so awesome.
Speaking
Dreams
of-
do come true.
Is Heart available online anyplace?
It is available online. It's on my website.
Oh, good. Send us a link or something.
Filmnet.com. Yeah, I'll send you a link. That's better. It's better. Yeah, no, people don't need to go to my website. I have enough people who are super confused coming to my website that I don't need to send more of the masses that direction. I've continued to get further Vanessa Williams emails recently. So somebody was asking if they could buy my dress that I had worn to some, I think it was like a Tony Bennett thing and had like danced in, and they were hoping that they could purchase it from me.
How did you like Tony Bennett?
I mean, he seemed pretty cool. Nothing bad to say about Tony, you know. Did I dance with him? I don't know. Maybe.
And what year did you see him?
I don't know what year they were like, I saw this thing and I loved your dress and what's your size? And like, oh my goodness gracious. I was like, man, should I sell her like one of my t-shirts or something? Just send her a little care package. This is for you. Just got holes in it. Just an old Crypticon shirt or something. Here you are. Enjoy.
I was wearing this under the red dress.
Couldn't see it, but it was there. Trust me.
What have you guys been up to since last we spoke?
So one of the things that my wife and I do at the end of the night before bed, we watch a sitcom. Like that.
Not where I thought this was going.
Maybe one we haven't seen before, one we want to revisit, and we've been doing Night Court for the last few months.
Gosh, Night Court. Yes.
Night Court season 9.
Oh.
The final season. First couple episodes, I'm going, this is fucking awful. What happened to this show? It's almost still all the same people that have, Roz and some of the people that rotated. They've got the final cast. Nobody's really changed. I'm like, okay, it's not that. Okay. Wonder what they changed with the director. And by it starts off with this really wild, highly amusing, but very weird thing where Dan becomes like the Phantom of the courtroom.
Oh my gosh.
A takeoff of the Phantom of the Opera. Somewhere in the middle of one of those episodes, I go, I'm just going to start watching this as like a surrealist sitcom experience.
Yes.
Experiment. And it's amazing watching it that way because it's so far afield. Bull is no longer just kind of a dim guy. He's this strange, weird dude who his girlfriend gives him a electric bottle opener that's just a bottle cap opener with a plug wrapped around the end.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what the hell am I watching? And for a few episodes, Dan's this super religious guy who just loves life and doesn't want to treat anybody poorly and is just enjoying the joys of life. And
oh my God.
His friend Phil, the homeless guy that he abused and made do stuff, had died in the previous episode, but his brother Will returns, and so he's slowly turning Will into Phil by having him grow a beard and wear crappy clothes.
Oh my God.
Holy shit. So it's gone from first couple episodes going, this is awful, to this is amazing.
but all based on your outlook. It's not really amazing.
It's definitely on outlook.
Oh, definitely.
If this had been regular TV, years ago, watching it once a week, I would have given up about episode 2.
Oh my God. I've been doing a very similar thing with TJ Hooker, which is just horrible if you watch it straight. But if you're like, he has so many different wives, they forget how many kids he has. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 1, sometimes they're adults, sometimes they're kids. His partner just changes out at one point. No big shakes. It's just amazing. And almost every episode is somehow centered around a strip joint. Always. And they don't really strip. It's funny because you see them dance with a pole, but that's it. There's nothing more exciting going on in there.
Early
in any
80s
episode.
TV.
It's beautiful.
What are you watching that on?
Oh my gosh, it's some really weird channel way up there. Because
so
at late night,
no,
it's an actual TV channel of some kind.
Whoa,
I know.
What's
it's not
that
a
like?
set time. I only catch it sometimes, but it's followed up by Heart to Heart and then Maude.
Oh, man.
So I've been really learning a lot. And then there's Maude. And the theme song, they're talking about Joan of Arc burning up, but it's funny. Oh my God. It's so priceless. Be Arthur, man. Whew.
I often wonder what T.J. Hooker's show would have been like if he had time for backup every time.
Oh, that's a great question.
I feel like
just
there would
more
have been-
Heather Locklear.
Right,
A
right.
lot more Heather Locklear.
I feel like every episode was no time for backup, and then he does a shoulder roll into the building and takes out a bunch of criminals.
Jumps through
but-
a window.
Goes across the hood of the car.
Right.
yeah.
If he had had plenty of time for backup, then more police officers could have shown up, and I'm sure everybody could have been apprehended peacefully.
Right. No one would have been shot/died
Right.
every episode. I mean, like, I wonder if this is why William Shatner's in such good shape. Because, like, he spent all those years, 5 or 6 years.
TJ Hooker was on that long?
It was on for a while. Yeah, just, like, working out, just working out on the set, looking cool. Jumping over things a lot.
I think that's when we first saw him with his suddenly curly, full head of hair.
Right. Yes. Hey, man, it sticks to him really well. I don't know where it came from, but it's quality work.
I started watching on Amazon Prime this series called Carnival Row.
Oh.
You familiar with this at all?
No, not at all.
It's kind of a mixture between, I don't know, Lord of the Rings and Peaky Blinders, I guess.
What the heck?
It's set in a, late 1800s Britain that just happens to have elves and fairies interacting with humans.
Okay, is there not a carnival involved?
Carnival Row is the name of the street.
Disappointed already. I'm out.
It's got Orlando Bloom's naked buttocks.
No, I'm not. No, I
all
was
right.
not.
It
not
worked
for
for
me. I'm glad you get some value out of that because somebody's got it.
It's a very dark adult fairy tale. There's a lot of sex and murder going on. There is a pretty amazing shot of a guy having sex with a fairy, and these fairies are human sized.
Oh, okay.
So
I was like,
I saw the look on your face, and you were horrified.
I was concerned.
She's on top of the guy, and as she is getting closer and closer, her wings suddenly start going crazy, and she achieves orgasm in the middle of the air with the guy, kind of strapped to her, as it were.
Wow.
And I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. No, you know what? Dark fairy tales are super awesome. So
Yeah, I can't tell if this is going to be super awesome or not. It's also kind of stupid.
how many episodes in are you?
I'm only 3 episodes in.
You're 3 in and you don't know if it's awesome or weird.
Much
and
like
horrible.
The Dark Crystal, this is one of those things that I'm watching because it sounds or it looks amazing, but I'm not really involved in the story.
Gotcha. I mean, like, did you ever read Fables, the comic series?
Yeah, was that Bill Willingham?
Yep, it was. Yeah.
I read a little bit of that.
I read the whole of it, which is probably a bit too much, but it had some really. I loved the way that they dealt with fairy tale like themes in the adult-ish world. They didn't go super far into darkness, but they went far enough.
Yeah, in fact, when that ABC series Once Upon a Time
Oh my
came
gosh.
out, I watched like the first 2 episodes, which I just thought it was trash, and
Yeah.
I wondered why you wouldn't grab something like Fables if you were going to do that story.
I know. I was wondering the same thing because I watched the first 2 seasons of it, and it was definitely still trash. It's like they end the first season by being allowed to leave the town, and I was like, cool, that's the end of the show. So I guess we're done. Cool. I don't know why we're still going. But yeah, like it felt like it was very much stealing from the popularity of Fables, and it just was straight up stealing like so many of the ideas. Carnival Row. All right.
I did watch Carnival on HBO.
I didn't
which was
see that.
freaking
but-
fantastic.
Yeah.
And everybody pissed off about Game of Thrones can just fuck off and watch the end of that. If you think you're frustrated by, end of season 2. Wonder what season 3 will be. Oh, canceled. Great. There is no ending. It just
who knows
Done.
what'll happen.
okay.
Is there anybody worse than the nerd who says something like, I like to pretend that Battlestar Galactica ended at season 3.
Oh,
I just
my God.
ignore season 4.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you know what? I thought you were just a nerd, but now I realize you're like a super nerd, and as a nerd, I want to beat you up. That's how nerdy you are.
Oh, nerd brawl.
Nerd rage.
But no, totally. Like it's frustrating because Battlestar Galactica was a horrible, horrible, horrible ending. But I mean, I wouldn't ignore whole seasons of it.
Oh, I see it all the time on Facebook.
That's so
Yeah,
weird. Buffy
well.
really ended like before she died. Do you guys remember she died season 5?
I think she died
came
like
back.
4
Died
times.
several times.
Well, I mean, the time, not the time that brought the one Slayer, but the time that she was buried for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
She was in heaven.
Yeah.
And the Scooby Gang brought her back, and she was
And
all
she was-
upset.
I was
Yeah, but that's right. That led to the musical episode. If
Which
you don't
is so
like
good.
it, oh, good answers.
No, I love it.
So amazing.
I had it on a CD, and I used to listen to it in between classes in college.
They got the mustard out.
God, you're
That's
such a
the
nerd.
good.
Got
Got
the
the
mustard
mustard out.
out.
It's true. I never deny this. It's just surprising to people in my life when they're like, "Wait a minute."
There's a local guy, Clinton, who's worked for SIF for a while and does a bunch of movie stuff around, who I don't know if this what brought him to Seattle, but he did a theater tour with the musical Buffy episode.
Are you serious?
And he had, Dean and I went to see it, and you've got these little buttons and little bubbles and
Oh my gosh.
things like that. And it had the sing-along music, so it was a sing-along event. Unfortunately, he got in trouble with the Writers Guild or somebody, but
Yeah, I didn't even know they did it.
but it was very entertaining.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
I did see a movie that was much older, but still very entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Val Lewton's Isle of the Dead.
Oh, I've never seen this one.
Pretty good. It's one of the first Boris Karloff ones he did. I don't know if it's the first, but it's one of the... I believe it's one that he's talking about on Shadows and Shadows.
You're talking about the Val Lewton.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's on a Greek island during the 1912 war. Several people get trapped on the island by a quarantine. Boris Karloff plays the leader of the military group that's there. There's a suspicion that one of them is kind of a vampiric demon, and it's just him dealing with that. I'm going to go too detailed in it. Details of a plot line of a movie from the 30s and 40s can be very simple, and this one is very simple. It's very good. There's some nice creepy stuff and some really fun lines. Like one of the peasant women is very much against the military guy, so she's... I don't know why I've been struck by lines recently, but I wrote this one down too. Laws can be wrong and laws can be cruel, and people that live only by the law are wrong and cruel. Like, oh, I like that.
Damn, girl.
Boris plays very much a totalitarian kind of guy where you're right or you're wrong. The movie starts off with a soldier who'd messed up in a battle, so instead of reprimanding him, he gives him a gun and said, "Do the right thing." Ooh. And you hear the guy walk out, the guy walks out, and you hear a gunshot. I'm like,
whoa.
This is going to be dark.
Whoa.
Per most of Val Lewton's stuff, it is dark. It's really a dark film. It's not quite as well shot as some of his other stuff. Walked with a Zombie or...
Yeah, he had lost, was it Mark Robles?
I think so,
I think
yeah.
was the name. He had lost his cinematographer by this time. Not lost him, but the guy went on to much bigger things
Right,
because
yeah.
that's what Val did, was make fucking stars, and then he kept doing his thing. What did
Kinda
you watch?
Roger Cormany.
Yeah, what did you watch this on?
Rented on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, well worth the rental. It's one of those $4 ones or $3
Right.
ones. Yeah, if you like the Val Lewton stuff like we've talked about before, definitely check this one out.
I will be doing that. I checked out the Banana Splits movie.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're not familiar with this, the Banana Splits was a kids show from the 60s, early 70s, one of those Sid and Marty Krofft pieces of shit, like all of their shows. They treated children like idiots.
I think Langley's going to disagree with you on that one. I believe he loves the Slee Stack one, the when I said Marty
Land of
Krofft
the
too.
Lost.
Land of the
You
Lost.
should rewatch it. It treated children like idiots because they had a very low opinion of children, apparently, and what children needed to be entertained. But it had a very catchy theme song, which I think is why it has lasted in pop culture this long. And it was a show that kids would watch these gigantic characters, basically furries, playing music and getting in skits. And
Maybe you're onto something there.
Oh, God.
there were little cartoon breaks, if I remember correctly. As a 8-year-old, I was like, "This is shit. There's got to be something better on than this." The updated movie has been turned into an R-rated horror film,
Right.
where in some alternate universe this show is still running, and a kid who's far too old for the show, it is his favorite show. His mom scores tickets for a live taping of this for his birthday, and they go there. In this version of the story, the giant furries are basically animatronics, and they go a little nutty and start going on a rampage through the alleys and hallways and everything of this set.
Struck me more as like they should have been the characters from Chuck E. Cheese or something.
I think
How did
that,
they get the rights for this?
well, I'm sure that they weren't expensive if that's what you're suggesting, Vanessa.
I was just curious.
I think they probably reached out to Sid and Marty Krofft and said, $50, will that secure the rights for these? And those guys, they're
Or
like,
they're-
just fine, sure.
Yeah. Nobody's doing anything with these?
I have heard that this was a unused script for a Five Nights at Freddy movie.
I heard
Now,
that as well.
I don't even know what Five Nights at Freddy is. So,
I have not
It's a
played this
video
game.
game.
Yeah.
and the video game is these characters killing
Yeah.
people. Okay,
Like teddy bears and shit like that. Or
okay. Well, that's exactly what happens in this. I kind of liked it, and it might be because I hated the show so much that watching them kill people just felt like a natural progression for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not very well acted. I could tell why this was an unused script because it's not very well written. I think this is a sci-fi original.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So I'm guessing that it will show up on the Sci-Fi Channel, but in a much less gory version because there is some pretty good gore in this. Watching these gigantic furry creatures cut people in half or, stab their eyeballs out.
Where did you see this?
Oh, you can rent it. It is easily rentable.
Oh.
Yeah,
All
so
right then.
VOD released a month or so ago or
I
something
don't
like
know
that.
if it was
for
that
a
long
week
ago. It might have been. But I got it opening day because I thought, I want to see kids in danger.
I mean, why not? You gotta come full circle against our kids episode. They
There-
heard us, we heard them.
There is a lot of that. There is a lot of child endangerment in this.
Oh.
And so it's got that going for it.
Oh, sweet. Sweet.
Yeah,
thing.
otherwise I'm not sure I can recommend the film, but I did have fun with it. I was surprised how much fun I had with it.
That's awesome. I remember hearing about it coming out and it being a big deal, but I'm surprised I heard nothing that it actually was released. Huh, all right then.
I was under the impression that it was going to have some kind of theatrical release. So when it popped up
Yeah.
on opening day on demand, I was, oh, okay.
Guess
but
not.
I also know that that's kind of the way the world goes now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of films that are really great that are doing that as well.
Little while ago, I went, not that long ago, I went to Dragon Con and I was on a plane. And when you're on planes, you watch terrible films.
Oh, okay.
It's just the way, it's the law. So that's the opportunity I give myself to watch the crap that I wouldn't normally bother to see. So I watched The Long Shot with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron.
I haven't even heard of this.
Oh man. Okay, so the premise is basically that there's Charlize Theron is going to try and be she's already Secretary of State, but she's gonna go for the presidency, and she hires this kid that she babysat, and she runs into Seth Rogen as her speechwriter because the one thing she doesn't have ticked off is being funny. And he's kind of funny, and he writes for this kind of far left newspaper, and which he's fired by. And then it's just a romance that brews between them.
Is she a far right candidate?
No, she seems to be pretty left.
Okay, well, where's the conflict there then?
In the idea that she isn't going to be able to get the job because she's seeing him. That's the main conflict.
She's seeing him, in a romantic way?
Yes. Yeah. So as their relationship develops,
I
the
call-
question becomes...
I call bullshit on this. Charlize Theron is a goddess.
I know.
Seth Rogen is a fat,
dude, and
funny
he's made way
looking
worse.
dude.
He is made even worse looking in this particular film. So
You guys ever watch that hot sauce show on YouTube where he interviews famous people while they eat hot wings that get progressively hot?
I have heard of this show.
Charlize Theron was on there.
Oh my
and
God.
if nothing else, search her out and watch it because it's awesome.
Oh my
'Cause
God.
She gets to the one, there's this one that's really, really hot that doesn't have a lot of flavor. And she spends the next 5 minutes going, fuck you, fuck this hot sauce.
I mean, she's actually, like, I will say she's really, I mean, per usual, very amazing in this. I think everybody kind of acts their heart out. The premise, though, really does let it down. There's only so far you can go. And most of it is like, well, we got to make him even more disgusting. How do we make him even more disgusting? I know, like, we'll catch him masturbating on film and release it to the internet.
Oh, no.
So that's kind of the icing on top of the cake. And then, you know, she has to decide whether or not she has to bury the relationship or go ahead and be the woman who's running for president with dating a guy who just masturbated to the internet. So...
Charlize, what happened? I mean, Fury Road, and then this.
I really liked her in that. The 80s one where she's like a badass CIA-ish person.
Was that after Fury Road?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you're talking about. It's not Peppermint, is it?
No, not Peppermint. That's
but it's something
wrong
along
actress.
the lines.
Yeah, it's based off of a comic book called Cold City, I think. Anyway.
I think I remember loving the soundtrack for that film.
Yeah, it was an amazing soundtrack, and she kicked all kinds of ass. I thought it was a spectacular project for her. Whether or not the film was good, she was great in it. Unlike this movie, I mean, and I also saw half of Detective Pikachu.
Half?
Half.
Are you going to go back and watch
I
part
would like
two?
to watch the rest.
Really?
It was actually way better than I thought it would be.
That doesn't seem hard to achieve this rating.
Well, I don't like Pokemon. I never watched it. I actually kind of slightly despise people who are into it just because they're of a different generation than me. And like the gap is wide. Like they've never used a payphone and I have. So that as soon as somebody says that they're into Pokemon or we're into Pokemon, I'm like, oh, we're never going to have a deep relationship, unfortunately. I thought they did a really interesting and neat thing with it and making it much more aggressive, much darker, taking the Pikachu character and just turning it on its head and being like, hey, yeah, there's the version that you know where it just walks around being adorable saying Pika Pika. But actually, if you translate what it's been saying this whole time, he's pretty filthy. He's a pretty filthy dude.
Oh, wait a second. So then filthy, because I think I saw about 10 minutes of this and I was like, oh, this is made for kids. Are you telling me this isn't made for kids?
It doesn't. I mean, it would probably be made for late teens.
Well, that's your demo perfect, right?
I was going to say,
it's
you
actually
mean kids.
pretty good. No, I mean, like, I thought it was pretty surprisingly adult. Like, I mean, the Pokemon are all basically on drugs and they, like, there's something in the water that's forcing them to freak out. They're trying to solve, like, essentially a murder mystery. And yeah, Ryan Reynolds just gets to be Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, okay. You've sold me on this.
can help.
I was not going to give this a second glance at all after the first few minutes I saw of it, but I had no idea that it got into Pokemon on drugs.
Yeah,
Now I'm in.
I know. And they have like a fight club scene with the Pokemon like fighting each other and like caged match areas where people like putting money on it. It's like, I mean, like there's the window dressing that is a kid's film, and I think kids could go to it, but there's a lot in there for adults.
Sort of like when you go back years later and watch Bugs Bunny and go,
Right.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I missed a lot when I was 5 watching this.
Totally. Yes, it definitely plays with that line, I think. So
very cool.
I can't say what happens in the second half and whether or not it ends well and if I like it beyond the first half, but the first half was great. Then our plane landed and they turned it off.
Bastard.
You go ahead of me. I just want to catch the last
I
couple
really
minutes.
did. Yeah. Like, I mean, I usually sit in the back anyway, so I don't even stand up until like, and like, I'm not going to freak out about this. I'm just going to wait until I get to move. Still couldn't make it through.
Damn.
Anything else to talk about?
I got one more I watched and go into briefly here. Monster Party from 2018.
Oh, I have heard of this and I know what it's about.
Is that the one where, I think I have seen this.
AA meeting for serial killers.
Oh, no, never mind.
Okay.
Criminals break
Yep.
in or something, just happen to be in a house full of psychopaths.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's on Shudder, so it's easy to see. It was 3 thieves get into a mansion dinner party hosted by a bunch of recovering killers who are in their annual get together or something like that to talk about how well they've done doing and not killing people. So of course, these 3 people break in kind of fall off the wagon, shall we say. When I first watched this, I don't know if it was maybe just because it had been released a lot sooner than I thought it had, because I went online, I was reading some reviews after I watched it. I was like, why is this so poorly reviewed? Because it's a lot of fun. A lot goes on. Ridiculous, inventive violence, really solid acting. Sam Strike from Night Flyers and Chernobyl. Robin Tooney is one of the leads. Pretty good cast, guys from The Wire and shit like that. But somebody posted something on it recently about how much they liked it. So I went back and looked, and now the reviews are pretty good. It's not something I go, man, you all got to go see this one. But I go, it is worth watching. It's a fun watch. It's kind of a darker version of the break into the blind guy's house. He ends up kicking their ass.
It's a darker version of that? Because
Well,
that's
it's
a
more
pretty dark
violent.
film.
It's more violent than
Okay.
Because there's more people to be killed.
Ah, right.
So yeah, definitely worth checking out. Murder Party on Shudder.
Murder Party or Monster Party?
Monster Party.
Monster
on
Party.
I think I've seen Murder Party. I've seen the one where a guy gets like an invitation that floats down the street,
Yes.
picks it up, and then it turns out that they were hoping for somebody to come so they could kill him.
Yeah.
But they're like inept like art students who are looking at this as like an art project. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's pretty great. One's like a sculptor, one's a photographer, one's a painter. So like they each have their idea of how they're gonna kill him.
I don't know this one.
And they like set him up.
You do. It's
Yeah,
the
okay.
first film by the guy that did Green Room, I think.
Yeah. I
Oh,
think so.
oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a
And then
pretty
the
good
guy
film.
kind of
that's
escapes and
I think that's very similar title.
Yeah.
you're
Murder
saying Murder Party, yeah.
Murder Party. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it's
Yeah,
called.
it's really good.
It was surprisingly good.
Very weird.
Yeah, I mean these are all great films in the lead up to Halloween. I think if people want to throw something on,
Oh yeah.
you know, good
Definitely.
October movies.
Yeah, hey, since you mentioned that, just a quick mention, the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival is coming up, talking about heading into scary movies for Halloween, and we are going to be doing a special live episode of Strange Eons Radio down there. I don't know all the details yet. Sounds like we will be interviewing somebody there that I think you will all want to hear. So if you're on the fence about going, this might be a reason to go. And if you are going and you listen, please come up and say hi, and please attend the live the live show.
Have
because
somebody in the audience.
we're going to
there.
need to figure out how to record this and maybe have a microphone pointed towards the crowd or something so we can prove people were there.
Just take a selfie. That's what everybody else does, and
There
then
you go.
post it on the internet.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Went to that Iron Maiden concert a little while back, and whoever the opening band was, which I think is like Steve Harris's kid.
Oh, that's right. It is, yeah.
Raven something. That's how they ended their show. Is that all the band members got together, and one of the roadies came out and took a picture of them with the crowd behind them. Going, this is our crowd. Well, technically.
Right.
If you would have taken that photo at the beginning of your set, that might have been a more honest portrayal of the crowd that came to see you. But hey, go for it, dude.
I mean, exactly. Like, why not? That's the whole point of being the opening act is like, you know, hopefully it somehow helps your career.
They were good.
I
They're
saw
actually pretty
Adele as the opening act.
Oh, jeez.
She was like bottom bill.
I saw the pictures from that Maiden show. I was just blown away by their sets.
It
God
was so
damn.
good.
Yeah, it looked amazing. I saw a couple of people who had gone, and I was like, wow. I mean, I'm not into Iron Maiden, but geez, it looks like an amazing time.
They know how to do an arena show better than just about anybody
That's
else.
awesome. That's super awesome.
Well, all right. Should we take a little break, guys, before we head into the topic for today, which is shadowy government agencies? We'll be right back with our picks.
Spy Tech, Case 101. The Whistler's made his move. Use your Spy Tech binoculars to keep him in sight.
He's coming your way.
The Spy Tech intruder alert detects his movement.
He's all yours.
You've lost him. Set up the Spy Tech long-range microphone. You can hear the smallest sounds like they were right up close. You've got him now. They have Spy Tech. They know Spy Tech. High-tech equipment that works. Each sold separately, new from Tyco.
we're back. We are talking about shadowy government agencies this time, and I'll just put out the rules we had come up with were it could be a conspiracy type thing. It could be a small group inside a larger group. My thought behind it was that there are companies like The Shop in the movie Firestarter, which is run by the government but not really even known about by the government.
Disavowed.
Right.
If everybody finds out about your mission.
Right. So with that in mind, I chose one of my very favorite movies,
Ooh.
The Day of the Dolphin.
Your life is spent in an environment of total physical sensation. That every one of your senses has been heightened to a level that in a human being might only be described as ecstatic.
Joseph E. Levine presents George C. Scott in a Mike Nichols film, The Day of the Dolphin.
His brain is as big as a man's. It processes information about two worlds, the world of water in which he is born and feeds and reproduces and dies, and the world of air in which he breathes.
Is it possible that dolphins are as intelligent as we are?
Well, that depends on your definition of intelligence.
What about the experiments that the military are
I don't know
supposed to-
anything about the military.
What about their speaking in English?
I beg your pardon?
First month, first year. Alpha speaking. In his own language, of course.
I want to visit Jacob Terrell's Marine Biology Center.
Second month, second year. 13 months to isolate the clicking patterns from the squeaks and the whistles and the groans.
The fact is, Dr. Terrell does not want visitors.
Is he hiding something?
7th month, second year. Our first phone-in.
Terrell tell you not to talk to me?
What?
Did he tell you not to give me any information?
4th year, here comes our first morphine. Phoneme P plus phoneme A equal... You've had quite a day, haven't you?
Fa? Why does Fa speak? Yes. Why Fa speak?
He does it for me.
Why does Fa speak to Pa?
They're sneaking up on us. It looks like we're going to be forced to come out with the information first to keep this whole thing from turning into some kind of freak show.
I want you to know that the equipment we borrowed is in fine shape, and it'll be returned to you very soon if nothing interferes with it.
Where are they? The dolphins. I would guess they're on that yacht. What are they going to do with them? That's the part we don't know. What we do know is that they've been working on this thing since you started teaching your friend Alpha to talk.
How do we stop them?
Unwittingly, he had trained a dolphin to kill the President of the United States.
Can you find B? Stop B. The thing on B's back will hurt men. Fa, stop B now.
George C. Scott in a Mike Nichols film, The Day of the Dolphin.
The Day of the Dolphin.
Why don't
Can you
go
make
ahead and
dolphin
start?
noises? There we go.
Slash.
Don't forget the.
I know I can't make that noise.
Oh, there you go.
That's
There we are.
pretty good, actually. Yeah.
This is from 1973. It's directed by a little-known director named Mike Nichols, who directed The Graduate.
Oh, cool.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Postcards from the Edge, Wolf, Silkwood, Working Girl, and a million other movies you fucking love.
Oh, it's true.
It was written by Buck Henry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he wrote The Graduate also. He created Get Smart with Mel Brooks. And
somehow was one of the most prolific, common guests on Saturday Night Live.
yeah, isn't that
Early part of
weird?
the series,
Yeah, he was a regular on Saturday Night Live in the 70s. It's based on the book by Robert Merle, very loosely, I hear. I've never read the book. It had a budget of $8.5 million and a box office of $2.3 million.
Oh, no. Oh, that is bad. That is a colossal failure.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it 45%. The audience gave it 41%.
Aww.
Keep in mind, this is one of my very favorite movies.
Aww.
It stars George C. Scott, his wife, Trish Vanderveer, and Paul Sorvino. Scott and Vanderveer have been training a dolphin for years. They actually got this dolphin as a baby when its mother died during childbirth, basically.
Oh, wow.
And they've been raising it themselves. Two humans raising this dolphin in this kind of cool little island aquatic research thing. What we learn very shortly after is that they have been testing it for intelligence and problem solving and all that, and teaching it rudimentary phrases in English.
Yes. It's a talking dolphin.
It is a talking dolphin. And as it goes on, you're going to fall in love with this dolphin because it's got a little dolphin voice and it speaks in very broken English. And it can only think in pure, it can't like take a hypothetical thought and have a decision-making process with that in mind. Mm-hmm. So if at one point somebody is trying to get the dolphin to understand, or not understand, but answer him when he's saying, if there was a shark in your tank, what would you do? And George C. Scott says, you can't ask him questions like that because he can't understand what you're trying to say. So the guy sets up another hypothetical question, but starts it with, there's a shark in the tank. And the dolphin just goes apeshit because it has been taught to completely trust George C. Scott and humans in general because of this. So the dolphin's name is Fa, after Alpha. Mm-hmm. And it says things
Flopper.
like Fa, love, Pa. And it refers to George C. Scott as Pa and Trish Vanderveer as Ma. They're having trouble with it, and they decide that maybe the thing to do is to bring another dolphin in for him to mate with and all that. Well, it kind of backfires on them because as soon as they introduce this non-speaking dolphin in, Fa reverts back to being a dolphin. He's never been around other dolphins, and this dolphin is teaching him his actual language.
Peer pressure.
Right. And so after 3 weeks of Fa being with B, they call her Beta, they decide that, and he hasn't spoken a word since, they decide that they are going to separate the two of them.
Uh-oh.
And when they do this, they've got them in adjoining tanks that can't be crossed through. When they do this, Alpha goes crazy and just starts swimming in circles in this tank and slapping his fins against the one opening to the other tank. And he does this for days and days. They're trying to talk to him, and he's just like, he's going to have no part of it. But George C. Scott, at the end of a very grueling day of this, is asleep on the patio next to this big tank, and you see the dolphin just come up very slowly and pop his head up. Pa! Pa! And it's fucking heartbreaking.
Oh my God.
And so he starts talking again, and they're trying to get him to teach things to Beta, but this is just never going to happen because she's a wild dolphin that, you know. The Shadowy Government part comes when the company that has been financing all this finds out what he's been able to do. They thought that they were financing a research on the intelligence of dolphins, and they get into that in a little bit. But when they find out that he's actually able to talk to them, they're very interested in this. And it turns out,
what to do with it?
It turns out they're turning their whole idea is they're going to turn these dolphins into little aquatic assassins. And they kidnap the dolphin. They have the location of where the president and his wife are yachting in this very well-protected yacht out in the middle of the ocean. They strap a bomb to the top of this dolphin's head.
Oh, my God.
And they show a couple of times where they're basically training the dolphin to do this, and they show him a flag, and it's a British flag. Or they show him the president of the United States symbol on a flag, and then they have him learn it, And then they have 3 little boats out there. One of them has the seal of the President of the United States. One of it has a American flag on it. One of them has a British flag.
Mhm.
And each time the dolphin, after seeing the flag they show him, will go to that flag.
Right.
So it's super smart, and it's got a little magnetic bomb on it, and so it can swim there unnoticed. It can click, drop the bomb off, and then take off. When George C. Scott kind of figures this out, there's a great scene where he thinks he's being shadowed by Paul Sorvino's character, who in the beginning of the film, you're like, I don't like this guy. He's obviously part of the bad people, right? Well, halfway through, it turns out he's part of the good part of the American government, who is trying to get a handle on this other part who has gone rogue and wants to assassinate the president. And at one point, he says, George C. Scott says to him, well, which government do you work for? And the guy says, whichever government pays me, just like you. He says, there's 4 million people working for the government in this country. Do you think that they're all working for the same government? And it was, this is 1973 conspiracy shit, the kind of stuff that I fucking love.
Nixon time.
Right. So it's a race against time now. They've got B, and they're trying to get. They've stolen B, and Fa has escaped from them and has come back to the research thing. And so George C. Scott is telling Fa, find B, and find B. And so he's stop B, and so he has to race now against the other dolphin. Is trying to reach her and explain to her, in her own language, I guess, please don't do what these guys have trained you to just do. And it's a great scene where the 2 dolphins catch up, and you hear them chittering and chattering and everything, and then they race away from the president's boat. And then in the other boat where the assassins have sent them, they're all waiting there. Basically they've got sonars and everything looking out at this to wait for this big explosion. And as they're waiting there, you hear this against the side of their boat, clunk. And they all kind of look at each other, and one of the guys looks out the window and he sees the 2 dolphins swimming away, and he's like, fuck. And the boat explodes. The heartbreak then comes with the knowledge that the rest of the people, they're going to want these dolphins. And so George C. Scott has to tell Fa and B to
swim away,
to go away, and they can't trust humans. After being raised to trust humans implicitly, they can no longer trust humans. He's saying, if you see a human, go away, and all this stuff. So it ends with Fa not wanting to leave. Fa, love Pa.
Oh, God.
Fa, love Pa. And George C. Scott going, no, Pa, no, love Fa.
Oh.
And I'm blubbering by the end of this movie. And so finally, the Catherine or Trish Van Devere, I want to say Catherine Deneuve, Trish Van Devere and George C. Scott are walking away on the beach, and the dolphin is just out in the water, kind of following them slowly, going, Pa, Pa. Oh, God, it's just a fucking tearjerker. It was just savaged by the critics. Everybody hated it, and I'm not sure exactly why. It's a really, really neat movie. Maybe it's a little ham-handed. Maybe the whole thing of dolphins talking is a little silly, but it's done really well. Fucking George C. Scott approaches it like it's the most important movie of his career. He's just all in. He
always goes all in. He's amazing for that.
He's sort of been left by the wayside a little bit for as great of an actor as he was. He needs to be.
Well, he kind of did that to himself too.
True.
Like he gets the Academy Award for Patton, and he's like, not interested.
Yeah.
So he was never really interested in making a big deal about himself. He loved to act.
He's an actor, not a movie star
kind
of guy. Yeah.
Some really interesting backstory on this. Roman Polanski was supposed to direct this.
Whoa.
He was in Europe scouting locations at the time when his pregnant wife, Sharon Tate, was murdered by the Manson family.
Oh, that's
and
so
so that's when he dropped out of the film and came back to America. Tracy Morgan, he says it's his favorite movie of all time, and he wants to remake it.
No.
Which would sound something like this, I bet. Fa love Pa. Pa love Fa too.
Oh my god.
Whatever insanity he does, I'm just like, I gotta fucking see this with Tracy Morgan in the lead.
Oh my god. Is Tracy Morgan still a whole person? Didn't he have a horrible car accident?
Oh yeah, he did. And
his like
he is
brain's
recovered.
all messed up.
He's recovered.
Oh.
Well, I mean, how can you tell? His brain was
it's
messed
true.
up before.
It's really hard to tell.
He was surprisingly close to his 30 Rock or 30 Rock.
30 Rock character, yeah.
To the character he played there. That wasn't much of a stretch.
Oh, interesting.
No. And the best part, you guys are going to fucking love this. So the two trained dolphins who played Alpha and Beta on the next to last day of shooting, after all of their shots had been filmed, they escaped and were never seen again.
That's
Holy
amazing. Oh, so good.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so I love this movie. I know that you like to make fun of me and dolphins, but
It's just such a, juxtaposed. It's just such a lovely and weird thing. I don't know.
The deep conspiracy of the dolphins. But isn't there either an actual experiment or a conspiracy experiment about the government trying to teach dolphins?
This is
to
what
plant
this is what this was based
or like
on.
do suicide bombs or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't plant them and run away though, as part of the problem.
Right. And just recently we had the news report out of Russia, the lady who had dropped her phone in the water accidentally, and all of a sudden I think it was a beluga whale or something, swam up with it in its mouth and handed it to her.
That's so
and
amazing.
it had a very strange strap on it, which is basically what this looked like in this movie. I was like, I know how this is going to end.
Yeah, and who is it who was training the beluga? Was it the Russians? Or
Well,
the
it had
Swedish
Russian
or
markings
something?
on the straps, but nobody has come out to take
Oh, yeah,
credit
it's
for this.
the Russians are definitely very upfront about everything.
Open government over there. I wonder why.
There's definitely no like horrible conspiracy with the Russian government literally this second, like today, like the weird voting thing.
Yeah. So my brother took me to this movie when I was like 4 or something like that, and I remembered it then, and I remember crying at the end of it then, and then seeing it maybe 20 years later and crying, and just watching it again. I sent a text to my brother and I was like, holy shit, just rented this. Do you remember this movie? I fucking blubbering at the end. You got to watch it again. And he wrote, I don't want to watch it again because I don't want to blubber at the end again.
Done that enough for that movie, damn it.
Why is it that as kids we're always exposed to these movies with animals where like you either have to kill them or they've run away or you're supposed to make them run away? It's like Fox and the Hound, man. It's just like,
my God.
right? How many horrible animal movies do you just like have to be destroyed by as a child?
Well, as a little kid, the relation of losing an animal is far more realistic to you than losing your parents.
Yeah.
For most kids.
Oh, definitely.
You can identify with having to shoot your sick dog behind the
behind the barn.
Oh my God. One last
out of
piece.
here, rocks.
One last piece of interesting trivia. Trish Vanderveer and George C. Scott's son are involved in a bizarre legal thing right now. A young woman claims that they held her at their place as a sex slave, caged. And this is recent. I think in May they went to trial on this. Now, I tried to dig up a little more information on it. Everything is being kept hush-hush, but it doesn't even look like Vanderveer and Scott are getting a lawyer to represent them, which makes me feel like there is very little validity to this and they're not too worried about anything. It seems like if you're accused of kidnapping, that you don't go to trial. You get arrested and they kind of figure out what's going on.
Right. You aren't sued for
libel,
kidnapping.
Right. So I don't think that this case has much going for it.
Interesting. Yeah, like I feel like you keep hearing these weird things coming out of the woodwork. I was talking to somebody the other day about Mr. Rogers and I was like, yeah, like it's going to be interesting, this movie. And somebody said to me, oh yeah, but with the whole like, sex thing with him. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's
I
just
really
that's some made up
don't.
garbage
Yeah.
that's going around.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
Nobody
Like,
can actually be a good person.
no,
to a
it's
lot
impossible.
Of people. It's like, no,
I was
sorry.
like, wasn't there
he
just a
kinda
whole
actually
freaking
was.
documentary about how he's a good person? And I just heard like 5 different stories on NPR from people who knew him about how he's like. I'm sure if he wasn't a good person, they wouldn't have done
come
it.
out.
Yeah, in the documentary, that would have been what it was about.
Sort of like what happened to the guy there's that great documentary about Elmo. And the guy who was controlling it, who used to do Elmo's voice, got into all kinds of problems for, I don't remember what the exact scandal was, but it was
underage sex.
Yeah, something pretty bad.
Not like child age, which is where you go when you're thinking of a Sesame Street character. No, this was like a 16-year-old boy or something like that.
Oh, okay.
That shit comes out, especially if there's something really making you popular. So
Well, exactly. I mean, it's not like there's a conspiracy to not make money off of movies. Like if you're doing a documentary and you have the option of somehow releasing some amazing piece of information nobody knows, which might sell a lot of your movie, you're probably going to do it. Yeah, you're not going to be like, no, you know what? I want to keep the image alive.
Well, okay. So somebody tell me what their choice was.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go next. So I chose Future World.
In 1972, Delos was open to the public. It consisted of 3 fantastic vacation resorts: Roman World, Medieval World, and West World. It was a computerized paradise where nothing could go wrong. But something did. Now, in 1976, Delos is about to reopen.
We have invested more than $1.5 billion to rebuild our equipment.
Its problems have been corrected.
We have replaced every circuit.
Its technology has been perfected.
The new Delos is not only the most fantastic resort in human history, it is also fail-safe.
And an incredible new world has been created. American International presents Future World, starring Peter Fonda, Blythe Danner, Arthur Hill, and Yul Brynner as the gunslinger.
Program the blast-off sequence. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Welcome to Future World, the ultimate vacation resort. Fully programmed for your pleasure, where for only $1,200 per day, you can experience anything you can imagine. And a few things you can't.
My night to your pawn.
Prepare the Martian ski sequence for 5 guests and return power to grid 3.
Future World, where every day is an exciting new adventure, where your fantasies become reality, where highly sophisticated technician, maintenance, and servant series robots work together to make your wildest dreams come true.
Take us both.
You can take risks, face danger, defy death, all in complete comfort and total safety. Safety, safety, safety.
You will never harm Delos. They're duplicates. You will do what Delos instructs you to do.
They're creating and programming duplicates of real people.
You will destroy your original.
I will destroy my original.
Peter Fonda, Blythe Danner, Arthur Hill, and Yul Brynner.
Even those of us who create them can't tell the original from the duplicate.
In Future World. If you can afford to go there, you're lucky. If you can't, you may be luckier than you think.
Ooh, Future World. The day of future. So it's 1976. It's a follow-up from Westworld, which for those of you who don't know, it is a movie, not just an HBO special show that has a few seasons behind it.
Yeah. True. Michael Crichton did Westworld. Did he do Future World?
As far as like writing it?
Wrote and directed by Crichton.
His name wasn't on the IMDb, but I could have looked further.
No, I'm guessing that he probably had little to do with it.
Yeah, I don't think he had much to do with it.
Studio just went, Westworld did really well. Let's do another one. Crichton's like, I don't want to. We don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, and it actually did pretty good. Like it was a 2.5 million budget, and it made 4.2. So like it pretty much just about doubled itself.
Yeah.
Which isn't terrible for a sequel. It was 33% critics and 30% audience on Rotten Tomato. So obviously flying high there.
Yeah.
Very great reception. Director is Richard T. Heffron, who did he did a lot of TV stuff. So he did North and South, the TV series, The California
Civil War.
Kid. Yep. And then he only did a couple of features that went to theaters, like Newman's Law and The Journey and La Revolution. I haven't heard of any of these movies, though.
No.
Yeah. The writer was Mae Simon, who you might remember from Phase 4 and Man from Atlantis. He actually only wrote 14 films, and this was the second to last movie he ever made.
14 films.
That's not a bad run.
I mean, for a lifetime. And then,
and it's like, come on, man.
and the writer, the other
How many
writer,
films have you written?
You know what? I'm working on it, buddy. Pressure's high right now. All right. I've written like a lot of shorts. There's not that many features. The other writer is George Schneck, who you guys might know from NCIS, 99 episodes of that. And then a bunch of other stuff that nobody cares about. Stars Peter Fonda, Blythe Danner, and Yul Brynner. Man, okay. I'm trying to think of what to say about this.
This isn't going to be
movie.
the Lake Placid, is it?
Oh, no.
It kind of almost sounded like, oh man, how
I'm
to
trying
make
to think
this
of like
sound
how to
good.
describe this movie. No, actually, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty solid considering I had zero expectations going in. It starts off a little bit on the wrong foot. It kind of tries to be All the President's Men, like right from the get-go. It's following two journalists. One's a TV host of a news show, and one's a writer, and he's like, the real journalist. He's the one who likes to investigate, and he's the one who brought down Westworld and broke the story for it. She is much more about just telling a good story and doesn't want to do fluff pieces, but seems to want to make this particular story a fluff piece. So these two journalists, he in particular, gets a hot tip that Peter Fonda gets a hot tip that there is something afoot with I think it's called Delos, the world that makes all the different like Westworld, the whole like bubble of various lands you can go into. And so he's to meet up with this guy in a hotel, and he's going to get information about this new redesign of the park that's about to get launched. And he sees the guy in the hotel, and the guy's all sweaty, and the guy collapses on him and dies.
Oh.
Yeah. And he's like, Dulles, like, it's like, oh, okay.
Rosebud.
So honestly, that is the main problem with this movie, is sometimes it reveals information that they think is really shocking, and it's really obvious. So that was one of those moments where I'm like, okay. And it's just so shot and set up like All the President's Men that you're like, okay, could you do your own thing yet? And, and they don't right away, because then they go to Future World. So they are invited by the president or the owner or whatever of this amazing theme park to come out. The two journalists are invited, as well as some diplomats and some other very high level people, to see, experience, and feel free to investigate all they like the amusement park. So the whole idea is they're like, we have nothing to hide. We have worked as hard as we possibly can to make this great experience. Come on down. We invite you guys to check it out and see what we're all about. And at the same time, they're opening a new portion of it, which is called Future World, which is basically like in space fun. Do you like space? Sure you do. Come ski on Mars. The snow's red. Like stuff like that. Like space pogo, like whatever. It's just very hokey. So they go on out to the amusement park, and the guy's very gung-ho on figuring out that there's gonna be something's gonna be up with this, and the girl is like, no, it's gonna be just fine. I can't wait to write a fluff piece about how amazing this place is. And of course, there is something afoot. He slowly starts to go further and deeper into the space. Westworld is now abandoned, so they're walking around Westworld, and he goes off into one of the saloons and finds like a little hatch, goes in the hatch, starts wandering around inside the depths of the mechanics of this place, and they find a couple of odd things, but nothing super solid until there's like one of the most harrowing scenes I've ever seen, where they go to sleep, and while they're sleeping, they've been drugged by the owners of the space, and they take them out into like these hospital rooms, and everybody's wearing surgical gear while Peter Fonda and Blythe Danner are laying there, and they scan them, but they also do things like replace all of their blood. They put, you just see on these like TVs that they've got scopes that are going through their organs. They're like completely invasively investigating every inch of their body. And then they put them all kind of back together, put them back in a bed. And it's like, oh no, everything's fine. But Blythe Danner wakes up like screaming, and she's like, I just had the worst nightmare. And Peter Fonda's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's great. And it's just harrowing, because essentially what's going on behind the scenes is they have invited a bunch of influential people out so that they can replace them with androids and have the androids go out and tell everybody how great the park is.
This is what this movie is about?
Yeah.
I've never seen this.
Yeah, so it is like the craziest conspiracy. So they're literally copying people all the way down to DNA, and they said there's no mechanical parts in them. They'll never figure it out that you guys are not, that they're not actually you, because we have been able to synthetically craft a perfect human being.
Very Frankenstein.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to just buy off a couple of people
Right,
and say, how about you know, here's $1 million. You go and tell everybody how great this is.
I think the idea is that the androids really want to take over the whole of Earth slowly, though. They want to get rid of people. So I think that this is like, it's a multi-part invasion.
So the androids themselves are behind all of this?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so the androids have actually taken over. They're running the park. My God.
Wow.
And they've got like new models that are even more sophisticated than the older ones. They're just everybody looks like people. And the way they discover that the androids are running most of the park is they're walking around one of the control rooms, which, by the way, the sets in this film are amazing. They are just super fun to look at. They put a ton of time and effort into these. So the control room looks like a freaking NASA control room. Nice. And Peter Fonda says to Blythe Danner, hey, go seduce one of these guys. And she's like, what? No. And he's like, no, really. Trust me, go seduce one of them. So she goes up and she basically tries to get one of the guys who's doing the control stuff to sleep with her. And she's just flirting and heavier and basically being like, we will have sex in 10 minutes if you leave with me. And he's just not having it. He's like, excuse me, ma'am. And like moves her out of the way. And they find out that Peter Fonda's like, hey, there's something, these are robots. And the guys are like, yeah, of course they're robots. What did you think they were? And he's like, oh, okay. People? Yeah, people. And they're like, no, everything's robot-y now. The world is robot-y in here. It's fine. Don't worry. The other two people that are talking to you are totally humans and not robots. So there's, like I said, there's a couple of surprises where it's like, watch out, surprise, it's another robot. And it's like, no, I knew that. This is not a surprise. But there's some really things I want to point out in here include, yes, there's great set design. I think the plot setup is super, super stellar. I think just the whole idea behind it really works. And when you see Peter Fonda fighting Peter Fonda and Blythe Danner fighting Blythe Danner, and it's great too because Blythe Danner's character is really good at shooting guns. And Peter Fonda's character is really bad at shooting guns. And their doubles are exactly double. So Peter Fonda's double is like, you're not going to be able to shoot me, and I'm not going to be able to shoot you because we're both terrible shots. And I know this. And they're like shooting at each other and completely missing, which is just beautiful. Unlike Blythe Danner, who has a literal showdown in Westworld with her double, which is just amazing. There's a really awesome strange moment in here where they find an ally in one of the maintenance dudes underneath the world named Harry. So Harry's really cool. He like saves them. He's a very man's man. He's a blue collar dude. He is living down there with his friend Clark, the android. And Clark is a really old model android. He's very mechanical. He doesn't even have a face. He just has like wires for where the face would be. And they hang out and they play cards and they're really good buddies. Just like Clark is the most adorable robot ever. And you kind of fall in love with this like robot. He's super sweet. They're always playing cards and like Harry's like, don't cheat now. And Clark is like, And then as soon as Harry leaves, like Clark looks at his cards kind of sneakingly. It's super sweet. And then when Harry helps Peter Fonda and Blythe Danner out, he knows he's going to get fired. So he's saying goodbye to Clark. And it's so touching. It's so sweet. He's like, I gotta leave you here, buddy. People on the outside just won't understand. Aww. They're just not ready for you yet. And it is a perfect gay allegory, too. It was like, it felt very almost like a little too see-through, but I don't know whether or not they really did intend that to be a gay allegory. But it's a perfect one, despite their efforts in either direction. There's the horrifying DNA copy scene alone is really worth watching the film. There's also a great line in here. Hey, Iron Ass, shouted at one of the robots. You get to see Peter Fonda flip off some people, which is great. The things that aren't so great is the like really obvious surprises that are not obvious, the straight up use of All the President's Men, as well as on the video screens near the start, they basically show off most of the film of Westworld. They're just like, remember this horrible thing? These are definitely security cameras and not like cameras on the ground that we're here to shoot a film.
That is not Yul Brynner.
It is not Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner also is an odd part of this movie because he is in it and they do advertise him heavily as being in it. The way in which he's in it is in Future World, one of the gimmicks is you can put on this helmet and while you're sleeping, it'll show people what you're dreaming. And they can record it onto a VHS and give it to you for later. Oh. So she has a dream, Blythe Danner puts on, she has a dream that she's dancing with Yul Brynner, kind of like kisses him, I guess, but it's really awkward. And he's the gunslinger.
Yeah, is he in his gunslinger? Yes. Oh, okay.
It's
interesting.
The weirdest shit. And like it's this totally odd, surreal, bizarre dream. Her hair is different. She's like running away from like surgeons, but also dreaming about like car wheels and hot dogs or whatever. I don't know. There's just like weird stuff that's happening in here. And it's both magical and like what the actual hell is happening. Like this is the weirdest use.
This is his only involvement.
It is his only bit inside this movie, aside from them playing back pieces of Westworld. So it's definitely very cheaty. Like Yul Brynner is really not in this film aside from that. And the early CGI is a little bit rough, but overall I'd say it was a surprisingly...
Early CGI, what year was the movie?
This was 76. And they're like messing with some really interesting, they've got like, when they're doing the DNA scan, they've got like the computer generated like body. And then they actually do some stuff that looks like almost early 90s CGI. I was really surprised.
It might be practical still though at that point. Cause it's kind of like in Escape from New York when he's looking at the...
It could be. It's a very similar kind of computer like readout.
Interesting.
That's cool.
I want to see this movie now.
Yeah.
I would check it out. Seriously. It's got some heart in there. It's got issues, but it's a way better movie than I expected it to be.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I actually think that the TV show might be stealing more from this movie than from that.
I was going to say there's the first stuff you were mentioning. I was like, wow, they really lifted that for the series.
I think they did. I think that they were much more inspired by Future World than Westworld. Yeah,
everyone's looking at me.
What did you watch? I'm done talking. I'm out.
So went to kind of abstract with this one. 1991's Kafka.
Kafka. that your real name?
Well, why shouldn't it be?
There are people watching.
This has been opened.
Oh. Shall I reseal it?
I understand you fancy yourself as a writer. You should find a more athletic hobby.
You don't belong here, do you?
Academy Award winner Jeremy Irons is Kafka. To solve a mystery, he will enter a nightmare. Kafka, directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Which is Steven Soderbergh's second film after his giant success with Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He went ahead and went full artsy, probably a little earlier than he should have. This movie is hard to find. If it wasn't for YouTube, this wouldn't be available. Right. It's available in a fairly low quality YouTube video. You can't. The only DVD I was able to find is from South Korea.
Wow.
And it deserves better. It definitely deserves better. Its critics' ratings were 52 and 73 by audience. So the people who've watched it overall seem to like it.
Right.
And a lot of times when a Sex Lies Videotape was such a monster success, especially critically, I feel a lot of times the critics are going to look at a second movie and poo-poo it anyways. Just by, unless something really amazing happens. It had an $11 million budget with a $1 million box office.
Oh, no. Was he ever allowed to make a movie again?
Steven Soderbergh?
Obviously he was.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm surprised. I am surprised because that is rough.
Yeah, no, he went on to make little things like Traffic and The Limey and Out of Sight.
Not that good. Could have been better.
In the last few years, he's gone full experimental again and to less success probably. Still knows how to construct a film. But man, there for a few years, he was doing some amazing, amazing work. This was written by Lem Donna, who wrote The Limey and also the criminally underrated Dark City. It's also written by the same person. Starring Jeremy Irons, who you might know as Scar from The Lion King.
I know who that is.
Or Dead Ringers, or High Rise.
Oh, God.
And any number of...
Now I just see...
dozens and dozens of films.
Oh, God. Just Dead Ringers meets Lion King is really an upsetting thought.
Ugh.
I can't get that out now.
Teresa Russell, who has been in a lot of stuff. Spider-Man 3. Joel Grey was in Cabaret and Remo Williams and Grey's Anatomy. It's been a while since we had a Grey's Anatomy reference.
It's been 4 weeks or something.
And Alex Guinness and Ian Holmes. So it's got a hell of a cast. It's loosely reminiscent of Brazil in that it's about a guy. Kafka works. It's not by any means biographical for Kafka, but it's Kafka working in an insurance company. Never advancing, never doing really good, but he's out there writing. They have a very, very clumsy reference to Metamorphosis. What are you working on? Well, I'm currently working on a book about a guy who wakes up as a bug, and of course everybody makes fun of him, and all us Kafka readers go, oh, I know that movie. It's like, that's not a real good reference there, buddy. His friend and coworker gets killed in the opening scene by this fairly strange looking creature that somebody seems to be controlling. He starts trying to find them and discovers this group that's also investigating these murders. Apparently this has been happening a lot. These strange looking people are murdering people and then not ever seen again. He's gets more and more involved in just kind of finding out what's going on. And the first 2/3 of the movie are black and white. As his conspiracy develops, he finds one of the scarred people and he follows him. And the people he goes back to then take the guy out into the woods or something and kill him. So they're destroying the people after they kill the person they're going for. So it's like, well, that's not nice. And he finds out where they're coming from, decides to working with the Shadow Group, decides to bring a bomb into the castle, basically, from similar to Kafka's book, The Castle. He's going to go in there and plant this bomb to destroy the people who are creating the scarred creatures.
Are we to believe that this is where he gets the ideas for some of his stories, is through this adventure he's having?
Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting.
my
I've never
gosh.
seen this movie.
It's pretty solid. As soon as he gets in the castle, everything becomes color.
Oh.
It's disappointing because the YouTube video quality is low enough, but it's actually an incredibly well shot film.
Huh.
You don't get the crispness of the black and white or the color that I remember when I saw it originally. Is definitely faded in this one. It's Kafka-esque, if you want to go with that. They've got some weird stuff going on, but they use references to the castle quite well, and the trial even better, I think, because I am a Kafka reader. I love his work. But it's not directly him, and it's not directly based on any of his work. Definitely got a Brazil feeling. I think as good as Soderbergh is, Terry Gilliam probably would have made this a more successful film. There's like his two assistants. When Kafka gets promoted at one point through some of the shit he's been doing, he gets noticed, so he gets promoted to kind of shut him up. And the two people who are assisting him are very weird. They like talk back and forth to each other, and they're finishing each other's sentences. They're like the cliche of twins, but they're not twins. And you can't quite tell, they following him or these plants to follow him. It's got some very strange elements. In 2013, Soderbergh said he wanted to do a full re-edit and shoot some new footage because he wanted to fix his film, as it were.
Oh.
Of course, nothing's come of that.
All his spare time.
Yeah.
You mean nobody wanted to drop more money into this gigantic loss?
No kidding, man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's definitely one that. Well, I could even see, Criterion now doesn't just do super fantastic films. They do some interesting films as well, and this would definitely qualify as something I think they could do something fun with. And Soderbergh come out, here's the original, and here's my recut, release that, and I'd be all for that. This is it's not quite, it's more arty than the other two films we've talked about. Definitely, it's a little more bizarre. I think it's easily one of the most underrated films he's made because, well, most of his films are very highly rated.
Why are the people killing people?
Well, that's why you watch the movie. You want to find out what's going on. That's the conspiracy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, I do want to watch this movie, but I don't want to watch a shitty YouTube version of it.
Yeah, that'd be the only caveat I'd go. If you really want to watch it, definitely want to watch it. It's the basic conspiracy. There's, tendrils all over the place, but the larger overall conspiracy is kind of boils down to, let's make a master race sort of thing.
Oh,
so it's the actual conspiracy. What they're doing to do the conspiracy is where all the fun conspiracy shit happens. The overarching conspiracy is kind of like, oh, okay, you could have reached for something deeper and stranger maybe because everything else in the movie is so deep and strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, the reveal's a little like,
Is it have like a lot of textiles? Like, does it feel like they put in a lot of art and time onto it? Because I can imagine it looking almost like Brazil, where there's just a lot of details and weird stuff everywhere.
It's not Terry Gilliam level detail.
Yeah.
It just kind of has a feel of something he would do.
Right.
That's why I think if Gilliam had directed this, it probably would have been more successful overall. Right. It's definitely a well-made film. Soderbergh still does good stuff, and the acting's fantastic, and the writing's good. It's just the getting to the conspiracy is far more interesting than the actual conspiracy.
Interesting, huh?
And after he finds out what it is, it maintains interest beyond that because, of course, he still wants to stop him. It's more about finding out what's going on than it is about a reveal of something shocking going on.
Interesting. That reminds me of, sounds a lot like Pi to me.
But
yes.
Yeah.
Very much.
Interesting.
Watch Kafka again, go, okay, this is better than I remembered it. And definitely underrated as far as the general public goes.
Wow.
Well, good choices, guys. I want to see both of your films. I haven't seen either of them, and I want to see them.
Yeah, and same. I would definitely watch your dolphin movie.
Don't patronize.
I'm not.
She wants to see Free Willy.
Well, I mean, I've seen that so many times. I don't need to go back.
Well, okay, that means that it is now, if I'm doing my math right, Vanessa's turn to pick for the next week.
Yes, yes. So I think I am going to go with Death from Above. So films...
Please, to describe this in more detail.
Films where things are attacking from the sky, whether that's rain or creatures or whatever it is, it can't be aliens. That's my one no-go.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be either a creature or environmental thing or whatever, something about the sky above.
I love it.
Interesting, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to what everybody comes up with for this one.
Yeah.
So, hey, everybody, thanks for all of your kind words and going to the Facebook page and recommending us and all of that stuff. Really appreciate everything.
And don't forget to do those 5-star ratings and recommend some strange-ass movie or something for me to watch. And we'll talk about it on the show when those start popping up.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Okay, so until next week, see you guys.
Bye.
Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Morgret. Our theme music is Strange Eons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Eons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts are found.